So as I was telling you, so the other day, I forget what I was doing, but I asked my son to go in the other room. I'm like, go find this, right? And he's like, yeah, I couldn't find it. And I go in there and I'm like, it was obviously
Here it
like this.
is.
And what occurred to me was, and I'm not saying in his case, I'm not saying it's intelligence, right? But
Mhm.
it gets back to with AI, we talk about how with AI, it's an ultimate fuzzy match, right? And so it's
Yes.
doing a better job of looking at just the string and taking into account meaning and stuff, but also understanding, cat might be kitty cat, or pussy cat, right? And
Yeah.
it's so what really occurred to me too is with AI also, it doesn't have to be just the text matching, it's the concept matching. And that was what my
Yes.
son, even though I told him to go get this, he was looking very specifically for a certain thing when the thing that he actually, it was slightly different than what I had specifically said. That's why he didn't find it, right?
Okay.
But
All right.
that, also it has to do with when we are asking AI to do something. This is why it's such a game changer because in programming, when we write code, it's no inference whatsoever. It does what we tell it to do, right?
Again.
But AI often will actually say, I know they said this, but what if we did this? And it's actually, throwing out different idea, broadens it a little bit. I think it's not so specific, and that's where
Yeah.
the smarter AI is getting, the better it is at saying like, hey, why don't you also do this also, right? Like throw these
Actually,
things
you
in
know
there.
what? You just brought up a point that I haven't actually really thought about that much. I never uh, touched on that specific aspect of it. AI, we don't tell it to generalize, and it does it right away. So I say, I want to build this, and AI generalizes a lot. And many times it goes way farther than I want it to be, which is why I get these
Yeah,
unexpected results.
right.
Now, I think that's what we call creativity. Okay. So how tight you how much you go and stay in topic, let's say, like how much you make things stay in topic, are totally the opposite of how creative you can be. So,
I would say this is where I was, to me, I get your point about creative. It's also though, if they actually, if it comes back with a good job of being creative, then I would say, oh, it was actually smart, right? Like if it
it's
was,
so weird, right? Because, yeah,
but when it doesn't match, then you're like, oh, it's so dumb. Like it
so
was,
dumb, right? It's so funny that you say that because exactly that's the problem. So here we go. I asked it, okay, build a tool that does this one thing. I don't know how it goes ahead and generalizes too much. The tool now doesn't work or is missing some things that are obviously missing, but it didn't do it because it was too generalized. And then we say how AI is too dumb. Like you didn't get what I said. It's
yeah,
just that it generalized a lot. Now, sometimes I tell it something and it is just enough that the answer is not what I was expecting, but it's within what I was wanting,
yes, yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, right,
And
right.
at that point, we say AI is crazily smart or whatever, but we humans tend to do that. And then we have this, I don't know, in Spanish, I think it's the same in English, is the square people and the round people. Like there's some people who are kind of like squared, and
Yep,
these people kind of like they cannot think outside the box, right? And that's what we
exactly.
say. These people usually I would consider them not creative enough. But I think is that they tend to adhere to some rules or things that they follow, and they do not go outside of it enough from what we consider normal, that then we say they are just like too
So
tight, right?
yeah, the ultimate one to me, because you'll laugh when I say this, right, is back in the what 80s, there was the MacGyver show, right?
Okay, right.
He solved whatever thing given with little, but it was, and you're like, he's so smart, right? But that was
But it is really,
because he's creative, but he's solving things, still achieving his goal, but he's looking at his resources and coming up with a solution that will work, right?
it,
And
it,
and it's like, it's
here's the thing, tying it back to what you said earlier. Imagine that MacGyver came up with some solution that didn't actually fix the problem. It was some creative thing, but it didn't fix the problem. That's what happens with AI sometimes. Like it does something, is really weird, impressive, but then it is not what you're trying to solve, or it introduces more problems than the things that you wanted to solve. I
So
think that's what it is.
I think we can extrapolate a little further though and say with we are kind of doing what you just said with AI. We need to maybe take a step back and really tell it our goals, and don't just
Which
say
is this is what we were talking about in the hero call this morning. All right. So I was talking about it in a sense of, if your goal is too fuzzy, ask a lot of questions first to
yes,
clarify the goal, right?
right.
Because of exactly what you're saying now. Once the goal is there, how far it can go away from that goal is less than if you didn't specify any goal. So that's true. The other thing is, we don't do a good job of well, no, it's not that we don't do a good job. It's that if you're using the Chat GPT portal, you don't have control of the temperature,
Uh-huh.
or
Yeah.
how creative it could be, right? If you're using the playground, probably you have a little bit more control.
Yep.
And if you're a programmer like us, you could use the API and actually guide that. And I think that's the most important thing. Depending on what you want to achieve, that temperature thing, how far or how creative AI is, will impact a lot what types of answers you get. And basically, if you have a clear goal and a tight temperature that is like 20 or something, or 30, it usually is very good at answering what you need.
You just brought up the point I was going to say was it also has to do with how the question is, right? It's
Yes, of course. Of course.
what is the temperature and
Right.
how specific of a question you ask. I want you to use AutoHotkey V2 using a list view to do like that's binding it
You know
very.
what? I I I how I'm just thinking this. So how likely you think it is that smart models or thinking models, maybe what they do is that they grab your original prompt, modify the parameters that they have to be as creative or not, try to answer the question, it didn't come up as some sort of expectation, and then it modifies the parameters again and tries again. Do you think that would be an idea on that?
I don't know. Yeah.
Right. So I was just thinking that, and I'm like, that would be very smart if AI could not just simply control all the parameters, but at least a few up to a certain degree. Maybe it would make it a little bit more
I, I
smart.
I think there's a little bit of that going on the reasoning models. Propose something and then say no, that I need to restart over, right? And it'll
Right.
way. So I think there's a little bit of what you said going on, right? I don't know how to what degree.
I would assume so, right? Like, and my logic tells me it should be a thing that it should do, right? Because we have seen, and I have proven this, like with one of the clients that we work for. We use AI, and when I was doing certain prompts without any how do I temperature changes or any settings changes, the answers that we were getting were all over the place, even though our prompts were trying to be as tight as possible, but it was being too creative. As soon as I started tweaking a little bit the creativeness of it, then it started kind of like following. I don't know, for example, with Danny, have you heard him talking about like how AI is doing wrong? You remember like a few months ago, he was complaining in the chat, like, holy crap, AI is so crappy, it's just not following my instructions. Right now, I have never heard him say that again. Like, he has been very stable, right?
Oh yeah. Well, he also spent a
But
lot
I
of
tweaked a lot of his AI prompt settings. Is basically part of it.
okay. Yeah.
So that's the point. Like, there's a lot of things that I think we on the hero call usually talk about the prompt, and we don't talk about the parameters because we know that they are just going to the website and using the tool, right?
Yeah.
But if you are a programmer and you are using the platform, the playground or something, it's not only the prompt, it's also the parameters, which on the platform, they usually hide that part. So it's probably being done on the background for you, but probably that's the reason why it fails.
And then there's is it using a function or whatever? You can tell it very much so. Give me a JSON thing, answer, with this very, very specific format and structure, right?
Yes, I
Which
use that very often.
well, that's and that yeah, because you need to with what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like you need this, which is also Connie the other day was asking about the hotkey string lookup tool and our
Ah,
add the functionality where the users can enter their for their programs. Oh, they'll manually enter them and then they're in the tool. And I'm like, oh my, I'm because in order to let people manually enter stuff, because it would all unless we had an AI tool to help fix it, they're going to be entering stuff incorrectly, and then like the amount of stuff we'd have to do to fix it to where it worked properly. I'm like, yeah, I don't have interest in trying to solve that for the three people that would probably end up doing it, right?
yeah.
If there was an AI involved that would actually look at it and reformat it, into the way we needed it, then that might be a way we could actually do that to clean it up. But without that
Right.
intelligence, the average
And
user
now,
doesn't understand. They'll misspell control or something like the hotkey, you
let me
know?
actually, can I show you basically why I think what you're asking is kind of like, is the way to go in a lot of software problems. So let me share my screen just for a second. It's just one thing. All right. So let me, there is this class here. Hopefully you can see my screen now, right?
Yeah, yeah, we're good.
And one of the things that we're doing is that we're trying to, um, we look at information about employees and stuff. And one of the things that we need to do is to get a position. Like, so I have a title. I would have from an employee what they do at a given company. And from that text-based title, I have to categorize the title into function, subfunction, and
Yeah.
level. Those are the three things that he usually uses. So I had three functions. This is what we did since we started coding this. What was this? 7 months ago. It's older than this. It's just that that was the last time that I modified it. So almost 2 years ago, I started with this type of thing. And since he mentioned it to me, I said, that's a terrible idea. But let's do it, right? That's what the client wants. I didn't like the idea because for this group of things, these are the categories. When you pass the job title, then I do certain regular expressions to match for that category.
Yeah, I remember
Right. Now, you can tell where this is going. For a given category, you can have so many things that can match. And actually, this thing is not the whole list because CAO actually means Chief Accounting Officer. Where is that in my list of things that are matching? It should be somewhere in there. I think accountant, accounting should be somewhere. If it isn't, yeah, I know that it's not gonna match. My problem here is we did a group of matches. And I could do this, and actually, especially look at this line right here. IT. Yeah, just look at IT. How many things would match in IT? Because the employees that he's matching are usually in IT. So look at all the keywords and stuff that could match for IT. Just that, right? And I know for a fact that that is not the whole list. This is totally wrong.
Yeah.
That's just not. That's not just the thing.
You're probably getting 85%, of what's there.
Yeah.
When you're doing the string matching. Anyway, yeah.
Right. And again, remember, these are regular expression matching. So I have an asterisk there. Yeah. And unit testing, tester, unit, whatever it is. And like that for many other things, right? And then here's the kicker. That was the function. Now, after I get the function, now I have to get the subfunction. And yeah, it's the same thing, but now for each function, now I have to do the same thing to now determine the subfunction. Granted, the thing is working really impressively good enough for what we're trying to do. Yeah. It's not good enough. And here's the part that always gets me. Every time when a new title comes up that didn't match any of these, he says, how come it didn't match it? And I'm like, that's exactly what I said it would happen. And it is an infinite problem because the other fun part of this is people get to type their title however they want. It's not like they can choose from a list. It's just
Now
that
I
they can type
understand
it,
why
right?
you thought of this when I mentioned the other things entirely. Yeah, because people are crazy in LinkedIn. They miss.
Right. They just go ahead and write whatever they want, right? And then here, this one is the next generation of those. You remember when I told you the accountant, the CAO, right? So the first time I started with these kind of things, like, oh yeah, they could put the acronym, right?
Yeah,
And yeah, the acronym should be matched only if it is just the one thing, and if it is like in that order and whatever, fine. But then I realized that's a terrible idea. So after a while, I started doing the whole word, like business development representative, and then each of the word parts are optional, and
hmm
the spaces are optional as well, so that in the end I could stay with the B, the R. So I match both at the
yeah,
same time,
understood. Yeah,
right? So I started developing these types of regular expressions. But this is basically when you fail at something, you get better at it. But that means that parts of your code, yeah, I don't remember exactly where I did every single one of them, because this is such a big pile, right?
yeah, it's
Now,
enormous.
the first time I saw this, the first time I talked to the person about it, oh yeah, and don't get me started on the levels. So because all of that is functions and subfunctions and now levels, right? So when I was talking about the problem with the client, I told him this is not a good idea. First of all, because we're too deterministic. We already have a list of things, and if a person changes their word a little bit, then I'm outside of that and I'm not going to find it, which is what happened to your son. He was looking for something very specific, even though it could have been just a slightly different concept and he would have found it, right? When you do if statements like this, there is no room for that unless you put it in. If you make it with a regular expression to be a little bit more fuzzy, yeah,
Right.
that's the fuzzy matching, but it is now limited to whatever you just coded, and probably you forgot about something, or you didn't think somebody instead of officer with double F would do officer with one F.
Right.
Some people would do that. They just made a mistake, right? So I told him at that time, hey, we should use AI. And he said, let's test it. And AI was crappy at the time. So it was very
Yeah.
bad. Now, just to get you, this get function and this get sub function, those lines right here, that is about 1,830 lines of code that is too specific and that fails, and that I know that will have a lot of failures.
Yep.
This right here is exactly the same code. What is that? 36 lines of code, and it does extremely well. I just tested it a few days ago. The only thing that we do is that I call an assistant that has already the instructions set up, and I just pass the title. That's it. I just give it the title.
Yep. Yep.
I give it the title. It has the instructions, but look at that. The temperature is set to very low, is 0.3.
Yep.
So I wanted to be very strict on the instructions that I gave it, and it does fairly well for what I want. We are in testing phase right now, but the same thing, and that's the part that we need to test. I don't know how to do this in a how do I say, efficient manner. I want to check what the tool would have given me with the AI position and what it would give me with this, and then see if that's what the client wants.
Yeah.
Or
Well, we can
thousands of rows. You know, that's the problem there.
Yeah.
So it is a very interesting. I just wanted to show you, you know, because I think it is tied to what we were discussing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that last, yeah, but it's AI is great at the fuzzy matching concept wise.
Right. Exactly. It's just like, hey, 1,800 lines of code that I know are going to fail because of how random people are and how they can type whatever they want. Now I can just have it in 36 lines, and I'm confident that, I don't know, 80% of the time I'm going to get what I want. That's good enough, right? For what I want. And those 20% that is not enough, then I can just pass it through my own functions and see if I can match it that way too, right?
Right. Well, that's a great point. Start with one, go to the other. So actually, even then, go the other way. Start with the one you've already done. If it doesn't match, then feed it to AI because
That's a good point.
AI one has a cost to it, right? It's still probably small overall, small, but there's a cost, right? Or you could have a local
Yes.
program doing it, but it'd be slow. Um, but you've already done so much work. If we were starting from scratch, I think we'd both be like, just give it.
Yeah, I just do AI, right? Even though at this point, I think AI would be better in the long run, right? But I get your point. Like you already did all this work.
Yeah.
It would be better to use it, right? And just and save the money that I would be doing with that, right?
So I don't think you said it, but maybe you meant it or implied it, and I missed it. What we actually need to do is not look at how often your current program doesn't classify. It's how often it misclassifies, right?
Yes, that's basically it. So and that one is hard to tell because again, I do get an answer. It's just
But
that the answer is wrong, right?
my point would be we take the original text for, let's say, 10,000, pick a number, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
more than
Mm-hmm.
100, right? And then you run it through there and we run it through AI. We compare the ones that don't match, we have a human go look at it and say,
Okay.
correct, right? And then
Yes, I think that's great. And actually, by the way, regarding doing what you just said, let me share this one little function that we created yesterday. By the way, it hasn't been saved yet. This is to get the LinkedIn URL of a company who's when I get the data from the service that he's using to get company data.
Yep.
He's using that service, and sometimes those people don't have a LinkedIn URL, and we need the LinkedIn URL to get their public information, right? If
Right.
we don't get the LinkedIn URL, what we have been doing is ignoring the company altogether and not even saving it to the database. But now we said, hey, I finally convinced him, let's do this, let's try this. So I'm using ChatGPT 5.1. I just and actually I created a prompt and then I told ChatGPT, hey, summarize it in a way that is so short, but AI could still do what I wanted, right? Like, and that it doesn't miss the idea that it has, right? And it did such a great job of um adding this role. This is what you're gonna do. Find the LinkedIn company. Input this company URL, and then find that exact LinkedIn page and validate it via website, and then website description and other obvious signals, and then output the LinkedIn URL alone, or exactly not found, right? No other text. That's it. It's such a small thing. And we just send that with whatever the company's the ID would be the Crunchbase URL. And usually the response time is in the milliseconds. I started timing it. It is 600, 500 milliseconds that I get an answer, I reply. And funnily enough, this very often gives me the URL and the correct URL. And when we looked at the response usage, it was like 140 tokens. So remember, if a million tokens costs you $10, and this thing does 150 tokens or 120, which is what it usually does, it's amazingly cheap to do this. So much so that I tell it, yeah, every time. So we were trying to figure out whether we were gonna use it sparingly, because I didn't know how many companies came without a LinkedIn URL. But then we realized the price, and it's like,
it doesn't matter. Yeah.
So cheap. It doesn't really matter if I do 1,000 of these in a day. Like the amount of that I'm gonna make is never gonna make it to $10 in a long time. So it doesn't really matter, right? So AI for this type of things, right? Again, if you look at that one, I don't think I was able to change the temperature of ChatGPT 5.1, because if it is a thinking model, you cannot change the temperature, which I don't know if I was able to, which begs to the idea of maybe they are internally changing the temperature.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. I think on the thinking models, it's because the thinking is deciding which model to actually send it to. Right?
Okay, that's interesting. Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, right. I believe so. The temperature isn't there because
right.
It's on the actual submodel it gets sent to. If I
Okay, and then basically what I can control is how long it can think and how many tokens it could use, but that's it. But then it will decide which model it would use and probably which parameters it would set to that model before sending the prompt to it. So that's the cool thing about AI in general. If you're having troubles getting AI to do what you want, just know it has to do a lot with the creativity of how far off it goes away from the answer that you want. So parameters like the temperature, the top P, the N, all those things, if you play with those, if you can, right? Those are great. And if you cannot, then use a thinking model. It's very likely that the thinking model is doing that for you, basically.
All right, everyone. Hope you guys enjoyed that. There's some food for thought around AI. We play a lot. We're building more and more tools with AI incorporated, and it's much easier than you think. So hopefully you guys are doing that as well. Have a good day. Cheers.
Bye, guys.